This lesson is how to create a fashion body illustration in Adobe Illustrator. Fashion body illustrations like this one right here, and actually I'll open up my collection board to show you. Fashion body illustrations are a nice way to actually showcase your design, your clothing design, but also show how the look is put together on a real person. It really helps to kind of understand how people put their style together. It's a great merchandising lesson as well as a good helpful tool for designers. You are not responsible to always do fashion body illustrations in your full-time job as a fashion designer, but it is a very helpful tool that you can bring to the table and people will respond really positive to it if you can bring the overall look of the style of the outfit and make it come to life. It's also a definite thing that I would highly recommend you learn so that you can put pieces like this in your portfolio. Sometimes I do boards where I might do a whole collection board where it might be only fashion body illustrations lined up in a row, a bunch of girls or a bunch of guys lined up in a row wearing different outfits that I've designed. Sometimes I do boards that are a mix and match where it's a combination of a flat CAD image and a full body illustration wearing that clothing design. And sometimes I might do collection boards where it's only flat CAD images like this, only without a fashion illustration. It's really up to your choice, and it's just, I kind of mix and match and do each collection a little bit different to keep my portfolio nice and diverse so that not one board all looks the same as the next board. So the goal is to get your flat CAD image done first. That's super important to make sure that your flat CAD image of your outfit design is done with both a front and a back view. Always, you want to always showcase that at least in one colorway. But really, you're only going to see the front view of one colorway of your outfit in your fashion body illustration. So really, you just want to make sure that CAD image is done, flat CAD image is done, so that you can reference it for where the stitching goes. You can have it to look at for any unique details that you need to draw again on the fashion illustration. Just making sure that all the details that you have in your flat CAD image are also featured in your illustration. You definitely want to make sure that those two match, even though they're drawn slightly differently on your fashion illustration, because you do have an anatomy to dress over top of where you don't really have, the shape of a person's arm or a person's like bust to kind of work around. You're really just drawing a flat CAD image. This you're going to draw with a little bit more of a styled way of drawing because you have certain anatomy. You have a hip bone to kind of consider, really like a breast here to consider. So you're going to draw this slightly different with a little bit more of a fashionized style. So let's get started. This is just a quick step-by-step tutorial to kind of show you what we're going to do. Basically, the first thing you're going to do is step number one is you're going to find a model pic. So let's just zoom in here on this step-by-step tutorial. You're going to find a model pic on the internet that you can sketch over top of, that you can trace over top of. Or you also have the option, if you're good at hand sketching and you feel really comfortable with that, and that only takes time, so you might not feel comfortable instantly, but you'll get there the more you hand sketch. You can hand sketch your own fashion body illustration in your own pose if you want to. So that's also another option, but if you do that and you sketch it on paper, you have to scan it in and put it in Illustrator Artboard because you still have to follow the lesson that I'm showing you, which is to trace over top of your hand sketch. So either you can start with a model pic from the internet, which is what I did here, and then basically what we're going to do is we're going to trace over top of that model pic. And you can see my tracing here. I'm just outlining the figure of the body, right? Nothing inside. I'm not worrying about the outfit she's wearing because my outfit's going to go over top. I'm really just outlining using the pen tool and drawing all the way around the inside, outside first, and then I go inside to add some inside details to kind of give the definition of the body. The next step, the one thing I will tell you is that has to be a joined shape. It's super important that your body shape that you traced over top of is one complete joined shape. And because you're going to need to fill that in with an actual flesh color of your choice, so you can design whatever flesh color you want to choose to showcase the race of the person that you want to design in your clothing outfit. But what I will show you and highlight for you is that it's really important that your body shape, the exterior body shape all the way around, is one full body shape like you see here, right? But what I highlighted here in red over top of this model is I showed you where the loose pieces of this illustration are going to be. So let me zoom out for a second. The full body shape is the black outline, but if I click on these red pieces, they are their own separate stroke line, and they don't have a fill color. They only have a stroke color, same as the body shape. Only has a stroke color in black, no fill. So make sure when you draw with the pen tool, you're doing that. You're only working with a stroke color. And I highlighted in red all the things that I did as loose pieces. So you can see that these are all done loosely, just loose piece stroke lines that just start to highlight the inside details of the body. So if I clicked on any one of these with the white arrow, you can see that they're not joined. They kind of start and stop at a different place. But if I click on this body shape, the exterior one that goes around the whole entire body, if I click on that with the white arrow, you can see all my points are connected. And even this inside detail between the legs, I actually did that as a full connected joint piece that's separate of the body. So really important that we do one full body shape that's joined, and then anything that you need to accentuate on the interior part of the body to showcase certain parts of the anatomy and give more definition, do as a loose piece. The next step is you're going to actually fill your body shape in with the flesh color of your choice, and you will do. That's when you're going to actually fill it with a fill color. So you can see my fill box is filled with a lighter skin tone here. And I just double clicked and picked that from the color picker window. So I usually, when I'm picking flesh tone, I usually try and pick it in between the orange, yellow to orange, red tone, because what that helps me give is it gives you different ranges of flesh tone, from a Caucasian flesh tone up here to going down to into the more mid, yellower or mid lighter brown flesh tones, if you're trying to do that kind of skin tone, down into darker variations of brown if you're trying to do like an African American skin tone. So you get a good range in that hue to pick from light to dark. So also the other thing that I do after I've drawn my body shape, like you can see here, I have a really thick stroke weight. I use a 2-point stroke weight to do it because I wanted to make sure I can see over top of my my picture that I picked of the model. I want to make sure I can actually see it. So I used a lot thicker of a stroke weight here. I use a 2-point to start. But then after I'm done drawing it, I actually change it to a 1-point stroke weight just to make the line a little thinner. So that's what I do next after I've drawn it. And then the next step would be to draw your outfit over the figure. So I started to draw this bathing suit, which you saw in the flat CAD form here. This was one whole piece, and I did draw it as one whole piece. I can actually take her shorts off. This is not joined, but you can see my little bathing suit underneath. And I draw my swimsuit as one full piece. You can see when I pull it off, it looks like this. So it's one full joined piece again. And all my stitches and details are loose pieces, and I drew my short as one joined piece again that is going to be worn over the body, and everything else that you see here inside of the short is all loose pieces. So really important, your body shapes are still joined shapes, even though you're drawing them over the fashion illustration. You're still drawing them as joined shapes, and then anything like top stitching, buttons, trim details are going to be drawn as loose pieces that are not connected to the body. After you do that, and we're going to add shadow effects to the body, to the flesh tone. You can start to see some of them up close here. I added some flesh tone, shadow effects. It's just really, think of shadow effects as the way that the light hits the body. So if you're in the sun or in partial shade, you might have the sun hit your face and it might be a brighter illusion here. Where the shade hits your face, it might be a slight dark shadow casted on the side of your face or your neck. Usually the rule of thumb there is I try and draw a shadow effect that kind of highlights around the chin area, maybe one that's off of the neck. I just did these little shadow effects here to indicate collarbone. I did this one in here to indicate the separation between the two breasts, since there is a very dropped neckline here where you would see some cleavage showing. And I usually also draw flesh tones kind of on the undersides of the arm. And then, little shadow effects sometimes in here where you might see the definition of a waistline showing. I might draw some in there. And then, if I'm showing off legs, I would definitely do some shadow effects on the inside of the legs and also give an illusion of the indication of a kneecap with your shadow effects. So these are all just shapes, guys. So literally, if you click on them, they're still made up of points. I just drew random shapes using the pencil tool to create that shadow effect. And I also just used a flesh color, but I eye dropped on the flesh color that I used in here, and then I picked 2 shades darker. So if my flesh color was up here, I picked 2 shades darker in the color picker window until I found a shade that looked like it was just a couple shades darker than the flesh tone that I used, and that's how I indicated what color I was going to use for my shadow effect. So you add shadow effects to your skin using a darker tone of the flesh color that you used here. You're going to add, you might want to add shadow effects to your clothing in here, but this is where the opacity tool would be used. So I'll talk about that later, where you would actually draw a shape again, a join shape with the pencil tool, but I would probably start with the color black and then take the opacity right here from 100% here, which would be a dark black. You can see how dark that is. I don't want that. I want something I can see through, where I can see the stripe of my swimsuit still coming through, but I get the illusion of just a little shadow effect, but I don't get an opaque black color covering up the stripe that is in my outfit. So that's where you can see my shadow effect being less than 100% opacity. You can actually see through it. And opacity is a great tool also if anybody's planning on doing a sheer fabric in their outfit. Click on the shape that you want it to be sheer, and you just take the 100% opacity down to less, and you start to see through that shape. So this is still a black shape. It's just now because it's 30% opacity, it's not a solid black. I actually see through it now. The last tutorial will be also if you want to add hair. I actually have a actual defined hair shape underneath this. Let me see if I can click on it because I have a lot of strands of hair here. Yes, so here's my hair shape. I actually drew a hair shape look like this. I just randomly drew it again with the pencil tool. And then I put it on her. I drew it on her head because I kind of knew how I wanted it to look. And this is a separate hair shape too. You can see that right here when I pull it apart. That's a separate hair shape that I had after I drew this like head scarf detail. I drew the hair. And then what I did after I drew those hair shapes and I filled them in with color, and notice that the hair shape, let me pull it off again. The hair shape doesn't have a stroke outline. It only has a fill color. So check out my fill and stroke color there. When you do hair, and we'll talk about this again when we get to that part of the lesson, you're only going to have a fill color. You're not going to have a stroke color. And then the last part of the hair is going to be using the brush tool to create like this texture to the hair, which just gives it more definition and more detail. And you'll use the brush tool and library to help you do that. And then the last part of the illustration is I'd highly encourage you, after you've done styled your outfit, you have all your details there. You get flesh tone, you got your shadows, you got your hair. I'd encourage you to add accessories to the outfit. Just helps to complete the look and shows, again, like how does one person style this outfit? What kind of shoes are they going to wear? What kind of bracelets are they holding? A bag? What does the bag look like? Do they have a head accessory? Are they wearing a hat? Do they have sunglasses? Is jewelry really important to the look of your collection? So really start to think about, what your accessories could be, and you can just draw them right over top of the illustration. So you can see I have sandals here, and again, I draw them as joined shapes. So, the bottom of the sandal is one joined shape, the straps are a joined shape. And I fill them in with color so that I can have a colored sandal. I do keep the black stroke outline around these details, though, of accessories, just to kind of highlight and define the actual shape of them. So you can see even in my head scarf, I have a black stroke outline here, and it's kind of, it's folded in on itself. So I added some loose pieces of fabric motion lines over top of it. But the shape of the headscarf is a joined shape that I can fill with patterns and colors. So everything's got to be a joined shape, guys. And then if you're going to fill it in with color, you can. If it's not a joined shape, you're going to run into issues. But keep that black stroke outline on some of your accessories, and definitely the black stroke outline around your body illustration itself, as well as the clothing. The only thing I didn't keep the black stroke outline was on the hair. And then when you're done and you're actually finished, 100% finished your fashion illustration, you're going to highlight over top of the whole entire thing, and you're going to do an object group to group it, right? And because I want to group it so that I can move it around the page, and here I am in my collection board, because I want to move it around the page and I don't want it to pull apart because it's made up of a lot of different pieces. I want to move it around the page and play with it in the layout. Maybe I want to put her in the center. and I want my CADs to be on the left and right hand side of her, or I want to move her over to the left or the right. I want to be able to play with her in my collection board and make sure that everything is selected when I move her around the page. So really important to object group after you're done, and that way you can highlight and have everything attached. So first step is step number one is find a model pic from the internet, or like I said, you can draw your own fashion illustration. You'll just have to scan it in. But if you are going to pick a model pic from the internet, what I would suggest you type in is look for someone that's wearing a swimsuit. And the reason why I picked that to start is because the swimsuit will really highlight the actual anatomy better. If the person was wearing a full outfit, it would be hard to see where their hips or where their knees are or where the arm is if it's covered with a jacket, or the illusion of breasts if it's covered with a baggy sweatshirt. I mean, depending on what they wear, it could change the whole look of what you're trying to trace over top of. So your goal is to put your outfit over top of them. So that's why I always choose a fashion pic of a model on the runway in a swimsuit. So that would be the key words that I would type in under a Google search: a model in a swimsuit on runway. And if you want to do menswear, you could do the same thing. Just type in male model, runway swimsuit, or something like that to give you these kind of things. What I really would encourage you to do is actually pick a full body look. I type in the word runway in the Google search because I want to make sure I got a full head to toe look of a model walking. I don't want to pick images like this where the legs get cut off. I want to pick like ones where you actually see the legs, you see the feet, and pick a pose that you like too, because you want to make sure that if you like her arms like this and you think you're going to use it because maybe you want to showcase, this is the attitude of your collection, you like that pose, then pick that pose as well. So really pick a pose that you like. Maybe I like the way that she's walking and I like the way her arm is, so I might pick her. Pick a pose that you like. Make sure it's a head to toe model pic where you don't have anything cut off. No part of her head is cut off. No part of her feet is cut off. And just make sure you're happy with the pose. And she's wearing a swimsuit so you can really see the body's anatomy through it. So once you have that, you picked it out, just copy and paste it. If I liked her, I could just right click, copy the image, and then paste it right into my artboard. If it doesn't allow you to copy and paste, you can do something called a screenshot, which is Shift-Command-4. Shift-Command-4 gives you the little crosshairs, and you can just highlight right over top of her and just select her. Everything inside this box will be selected. If you do a screenshot, you're just going to have to pull it from your desktop, so it will show up on your desktop somewhere, and you'll have to click and drag it into Illustrator. So it's just a different technique if you do a screenshot versus a right-click copy image. So here's the image that I pulled from the internet that I liked, and the first thing I'm going to do is crop out as much of the background as I can, so I can do something called Command 7, and Command key number 7 will give me these little scaling boxes, and then I can take the double-ended arrows and just crop out as much backdrop as I can, so that I really want to focus on just her and not have so much of the background around her to distract me when I'm tracing. So once you're done that, you click off of it, and here I have my cropped image of my model. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do an object lock selection because I don't want her to move, right? So I'm going to lock the drawing so that I can trace over top of it and not accidentally have the picture move around on me. And then, I'm going to take the pen tool. So let me just bring this over for a second. This is how my illustration, this is the first part of my illustration. It's going to look like this. I'm going to trace just the outside perimeter of the body, and I'm not going to do the whole thing for you guys. I'm just going to start it off to show you what tools I'm using, but I'm taking the pen tool and making sure I don't have a fill color in my fill box. I only have a stroke, and you can even decide to use a different pop color if you want to make sure you can see it. If the backdrop behind this model is black, maybe you don't want to use a black stroke color. Maybe you want to use a pop color to allow you to see what you're drawing. So I'm going to stay with black because her backdrop's not so dark, so I can actually see a black stroke outline around her. And I'm going to take the pen tool, and I usually start at the top of the head. Don't worry about what her hair looks like unless you really like her hair, but you're going to have to draw the hair separately. So just really focus on the head shape only. So I'm going to start up at the top, and I'm just going to focus on the head. So even though she's got this little bun at the top, I'm not going to copy that because I'm giving my model a different hairstyle than she has. So I'm really just copying the head. So top of the head, click, this is one whole join shape, and I will tell you guys, if you're not comfortable with drawing curve lines, this is gonna be hard for you. You have to draw curve lines pretty much across the whole entire fashion illustration in order to make it look natural. So I'm gonna click one point, and then as you do every curve line, you click and hold and you bend, and then you can release, or you can continue to draw curve line to curve line. Just everything's going to be either a subtle curve or a very extreme curve, right? So when you go curve line to curve line, you don't have to actually necessarily click off and release the tool if you go curve to curve to curve. If you go curve to straight line, you will have to click off and release. But I'm just tracing, going all the way down the figure, you know, and you get the gist. You just kind of go through it, but everything's a curve line, even if it looks like it's straight. You know, if this area starts to get a little weird, I might release for a second and then go back to it. So if you release, you got to make sure you hover back over that line until the little point and little minus sign appears. When the minus sign appears, means you're getting ready to click on that existing line segment, which is what you want, because you want to make sure when you're drawing, you're joining your shape as you're drawing. So this is how we join our shape as we're drawing using the pen tool. So make sure that as you're drawing, everything is connected, right? So even if you release the tool, like I'll just purposely release right now, I want to take the pen tool, I'm going to hover right over that until the minus sign appears, and I click back on that existing point. So I'm just going to keep going all the way through. I'm not going to go all the way down the whole body, but you can kind of understand what I'm trying to do here, and just highlight the body all the way down, right? So I'll stop there. But this is basically the look that you want. You want to draw it all the way, starting at the top of the head, all the way around, inside, outside, all the way around. What I won't do here is inside the legs. Don't trace inside the legs. Make this little piece right here a separate piece. So what I would do is continue from here, go all the way down around the foot. Then I would go this way, all the way around the foot and up the leg, the other side, around the perimeter hand. Don't worry about the inside corners there. Just go around. Think about it just highlighting around the exterior only of the fashion illustration. The next step is going to be all these loose pieces, right? So these are the loose pieces that actually exist inside, like the inside of the legs, the sides of the face. So you can see I highlighted them in red. So I have a loose piece here underneath to define her chin. I have loose pieces in here to define the side of her body and around her fingers. I did actually join, this should be red too, because this is a separate piece as well. But it actually is a join piece, but it's separated. It's not joined to the body shape. The body shape is black, and everything that's a loose piece is red. So that's the first step, is to do that, join to actually have that drawn. And then once you have these loose pieces, you would draw that again over top of the fashion illustration. And now you will have a full, complete illustration. Just bring it all back to where it was before. A full body illustration that I have here. Actually, let me just go back 1 second. Bring this back over so it's all together and lined up where I had it before. Shouldn't have separated it, but so yeah, so I draw that, and then I drew these as separate pieces, but I drew them right over top of the figure, and then I grabbed and object grouped this whole thing. So actually I didn't lock her, so let me object lock selection. And then if you object lock selection, because you should have had it locked from the beginning, just delete this. Now I can, if I have it, my picture object lock selection, I can actually highlight over top of this whole thing and do an object group, and then I can copy and paste it, and now I have my fashion illustration. Now you can see the black outline is the full body joined shape, and the red details are the loose pieces, right? So if you have that and you use different colors, what you want to do next is you're going to want to change everything to black. What you're going to do, you can do object, hold on, sorry. You can just click on, the best thing would be to do is anything that's not black, to click on it, and you can click on it with the white arrow, and you can hold shift and I only have a few red pieces, so I'm just going to hold shift and actually just take the eyedropper tool and click on the black color that I already had. Or if you didn't have black, you could just double click and pick a black color, or you can also use window color. Window color is always a nice helpful tool. Window color always has a black and a white chip available for you. Because the goal is you want to have everything with the same black stroke outline. After you have that, then you're going to take the body shape, you'll copy and paste. I'm sorry, well, I have a copy paste. You're going to just take your body shape and not copy and pasted it. You're going to just fill this body shape in with flesh tone. And you're also going to go to window stroke. Let's do that first before we fill it in with flesh tone. I used a 2-point stroke line to make this fashion illustration just so it's thick enough so I can see it. I'm going to change it to a 1-point stroke line, make sure all of it's highlighted so it all changes at once. So thin out the stroke line and make it a little thinner. I'm just going to change it to a 1 point. Then I'm going to fill it in with a fill color, right? Because before, right now, I have a no fill in my fill box. So I want to now take that and actually double click on the fill box, pick a flesh tone that you want, somewhere in the orange and red tone, because it gives you a different variety of flesh tones in that colored hue. And once you like that, you hit OK. Next step is going to be actually to start drawing my outfit on top. So what I want to have next is I want to have my outfit nearby. Just lock this for a second. And really important to have your outfit. I didn't lock any of this. I'll lock all my backdrops because I don't want to have them move. All I want to do is highlight over my illustration. I'm going to copy and paste it, you guys, only because I want it near my illustration I'm going to draw for you up here. So I want to make sure that the outfit that I know I want to dress my model in is nearby and right next door to my fashion illustration, because I want to have it there when I start dressing the model, and I want to make sure that I'm referencing and drawing it correctly. Even though this is a flat drawing, I know that I need to draw a skinny strap starting at the top of the shoulder. I need to go all the way down and draw a full piece bathing suit, you know, that covers her breasts and goes back up. And then I need to know that I'm also going to draw a very plunging neckline here with this V-shaped cutout detail. So that's what I drew here. Actually, let me copy and paste because I don't want to pull her apart. But that's what I drew here because I'm not going to draw it from scratch. It'll take forever for me to have this video show you that. But I drew a swimsuit. It's all one joined piece. I drew that to first. So think about if you have a 3-piece outfit, for instance, if you have a jacket that's worn over top of a top, draw the top first because that's the first thing that the person puts on their body. And then you'll figure out how to draw the jacket after, because you might want to draw the jacket open where you can see some of the top peeking out. So draw the top first and let it be its own joined shape. And then if you have a second piece that goes over the top, draw that as a separate piece that's a joined shape. And you could draw only part of the jacket that you see showing. That way you can show the top underneath there. So I only have a 2-piece outfit. So here's my first piece, my swimsuit. And again, I use the pen tool to do all of this. So I'll click on it with the white arrow. You can see all my stroke points. So again, depending on how you draw it, it's probably mostly going to be curve lines, you guys, because you have an anatomy to kind of consider. Think of this as like just dressing like a doll, the way you're going to draw over top of this. So you're just going to follow the anatomy. If it's slim fitting like mine is, I literally followed and hugged the anatomy as I drew it. If it's a more casual style that's a little bit more baggy fitting, you're not going to hug the anatomy so much. You're going to draw it away from the figure and kind of draw it as more of a baggier look. So use the anatomy for reference for what the length should be. If I had a full piece swimsuit, so I knew it stopped here at the crotch, came up a little higher on the hip. Or if you have a crop top, you're going to know this is her waistline. You might want to stop the bottom of your top here if it's a crop top. If it's a baggier fit, again, don't hug the anatomy, just really draw it as more of a baggier look. It's really going to depend on your outfit and your outfit only. So then I drew that first, and I drew a pair of shorts, and I put over top of the figure. So if anything, I drew it over top, so it doesn't look like it is right now, but I'm just going to object, range, bring to front, and now you'll see that I drew my swimsuit first, and then I locked it, and anytime you draw over your figure, you should actually lock it. So let me go back and actually step back for 1 second and tell you to do that. So first, before you draw, do an object lock selection. I should have said that in the meantime. Object lock selection. You want to lock the figure first. Then you're going to start drawing your first piece on top. And then if you're going to draw something over top of that, like these shorts, I drew these shorts over top of this swimsuit. I'm going to maybe lock the swimsuit for a minute and object lock selection, right? And then I can start drawing the shorts over top of the girl. Now, the thing I will tell you is when you start drawing these outfits, what I would encourage you to do is maybe don't worry about a fill color right yet. Draw them more as a stroke line only. So you can see my shorts started off like this. I just drew a stroke line around the body to indicate the joined shape of the shorts. And then I went back into the fill box and I picked from my project. I used the color palette chips that I have here. And I made sure that I had them there. And then, you know, you don't need the color chips actually if you have your CADs already colored. So it's really, again, helpful to have your outfit fully colored, because once you have your outfit fully colored, you can have it right next door to you. And instead of pulling up the color chips, you can just eyedrop, make sure your fill box is on top, eyedrop on top of the actual flat CAD of the short. And now I have my short filled with the solid color that I have it here below. So really important, again, to have your CADs already done, flat CADs already done, colored, have all the stitching details finished before you start your fashion illustration so that you can use them to kind of finish your fashion illustration. So then, you know, I have two body shapes. I have the shorts and then I have the swimsuit. The next step would be to then whatever is showing on the exterior of your illustration is what you're going to focus filling in the details of. So I have stitching showing here. I have this lacing detail. I drew this as more of a plunging neckline to indicate this cutout detail, because when it stretches over the body and the bust stretch it out, you're not going to see it look so V-shaped. It's actually going to be a little bit more relaxed. So that's indicating this detail here. So it might look like slightly different when you dress it on top of the model, but as long as it's conveying the same details and the same look, you're getting your point across here. So anything that's showing is, you know, I'm going to start drawing on this figure. So I'm going to make sure that, you know, I have my straps drawn, and all these are loose pieces, guys. So when you start drawing loose pieces, make sure you're only drawing with a black stroke outline, no fill color. So loose pieces should never have a fill color in them ever, ever. So please make sure when you're drawing these loose pieces, like I just drew my little black strap seams, which I have here, and then I'm going to go and take the pen tool and I'm now going to draw my stitching that shows up on my flat CAD. So making sure that that flat CAD is nearby is so important, because you can take it, you can eyedrop on it, because you want to make sure you have the same stitch stroke weight in your top stitching. So having that nearby is so crucial. Having that part done first is just so important. And then, you know, I'll go on, so on and so on. Whatever's going to show in the body, I'm going to draw again here on my fashion illustration. So I have all these stitching showing, going all the way around, and I'm just going to use my flat CAD as an example. And a lot of it, again, might be curve lines, so just get used to going from curve line to curve line to curve line using the pen tool. So I'm not going to finish this, but you get the gist of what, you know, what I would going to do here. You know, I would add in my strap detail, and I'll have a separate lesson on strapping details, but I'm not going to draw that here. I'm going to actually show you a separate video on how to do lacing details like this, so you'll see that for as a separate tutorial. But I'll fill that detail in. You know, I'll go down to my shorts and I'll start to, you know, draw my loose pieces on my shorts. I'll draw my waistband seam because I see that's on my flat CAD. You know, I make sure that it's a black stroke outline, and because I was on stitching before, I need to go back to window stroke because it's trying to change it into stitching. Click off a dash line. So if you're starting with stitching and then you move on to something else and you need a solid stroke line, you need to just make sure you go back to window stroke and turn off the dash line and uncheck that box so that you can have a solid stroke line again. So because the pen tool, just remember that you were last using the dash line to create stitching, so it'll try and change your next line that you draw into stitching. So, you know, I'll just add in all those details, right? So just go through the body and just start adding in my seams, and all these are loose pieces, guys. The only joined shape is my shorts and my swimsuit. And then I'll just go and fill in. I can even copy this button from my flat CAD, the button and buttonhole, I can copy that. I can copy these little rivets and bring them over. But what I can't copy, and I want to make sure this is clear, what I can't copy is all the details inside my short. I may be able to copy some of these holes, but I wouldn't copy these pockets. I wouldn't copy the belt loops. The only reason why is because look at the scale of this short on my fashion illustration. It's way smaller than the scale of my flat CAD. So I need to actually redraw those things again on the fashion illustration. The same thing for that lacing detail. I'm going to redraw that again here. So you can see all that stuff got redrawn directly on the fashion illustration. So yeah, you are doing some things twice because you did it for the flat CAD and then you're going to do it sorry, let me put this one because this is the one I finished with the rivets and stuff. You'll do it again differently on the fashion illustration than you had done on the flat CAD, but that's okay because you need to reference this anatomy and this fashion model's pose in order to actually dress it properly. If you are going to do things like cut out details, like I have these distressed holes that are cut out, let me just ungroup her for a second so I can pull this apart. You would actually have skin showing through because if you have any details that get cut out of the garment, you will have skin showing through like you would if you wore these shorts. So if you do that, just make sure you fill it in with the same flesh color that you would have on the leg, right? So then I made sure that that wasn't filled with white. It's filled with white here on my flat CAD. That's because you see through it, right? So you're going to see the artboard through it. So I filled it with white there, but if it's on a model, you're actually going to see flesh tone. You're going to want to fill that in with flesh tone. So the next step is going to be to add shapes that indicate shadow effects, right? So that's one of the steps that I did here. And actually all I did for that is I just added, let me just ungroup her for a second so I can pull apart these shapes. Let me lock these. I started drawing just illusions of different shapes that, again, when you're doing shadow effects, it's a little hard to teach, but basically what I would just emphasize on doing your shadow effects on the skin tone would be something around the chin and neck area. If you're showing off, if you don't have anything high neck in your outfit and you're showing off a little bit of the neckline, you might want to do a little collarbone shapes to indicate the collarbone. If you have something very cleavage bearing, if you're doing women's wear and you know that's very low plunging neckline, I did a shape here just to indicate the bust separation. And then for arms, if you have more very bare, skin bare outfit like I do, and you don't have anything covering up the arms, then you might want to do some shadow effects under the arm here that again are just drawn. I use the pencil tool for this, you guys, so I just kind of randomly, so let me take one off for a second. I'll just randomly draw one just to give you an idea. So the first thing when you're doing flesh tone shadow effects is you're going to take the eyedropper tool first and foremost. Take the eyedropper tool. And you're going to click on the actual flesh tone that you chose for your fashion illustration. So you have to be happy with that flesh tone first and not change it later. Be happy with it first before you start adding shadow effects. Eyedrop on it so it shows up in your fill box, and get rid of the stroke box this time. So when you're doing shadow effects, you want to see here, I don't have a stroke outline. I only have a fill color. So it's a little bit different than what we did on the outline of the body. So this is for shadow effects only. Make sure you have a fill color that matches your flesh tone. And then after you have that, the next step is going to be to double click on that flesh tone color because I'm getting ready to make it a little darker in my shadow. And here's the flesh color that I picked for the body. You can always, when you double click on the fill color, color picker window opens up and you will see the little circle right here is indicating that is the flesh tone of my illustration right now, that little circle. So usually what I do is I go about a little lower, usually on the same level as that circle. I might go like a little lower to go down into a slightly darker area of that same flesh tone. I wouldn't go over to the right because what's going to happen is going to turn into more of an orange cast, and I don't want that. All I want is the same exact flesh tone, just a shade darker than the flesh tone in the body. So I might go here, and then I'll hit OK. And then I won't know for sure if it's the right flesh tone color of my shadow effect until I start drawing it with the pencil tool. So now I'm on the pencil tool, and if it doesn't show up, guys, it's underneath the shaper tool. All you have to do is hold it down, and the pencil tool will reveal itself underneath. So hold down any tool that has other tools underneath it, and you'll find the other tools there. So what I would do then is I just start to draw random shapes, and I start to think about, this is one of the hardest things to teach, but I just draw random shapes and I try and stay inside of the body shape, and try not to go outside of the body shape when I draw it. Oh, sorry, I lost that flesh tone. So actually what I need to do is I drop on top of the flesh tone. Sorry, everything I just showed you a minute ago was wrong. I drop on the flesh tone. So draw the shape first. So that was where I messed up. I need to draw the shape first with the pencil tool. I drop on top of the flesh tone, which is going to give you a black stroke outline. So now I need to take take the no fill in my stroke box and only focus on the fill color only. Then I double click on the fill color, and again I go maybe a little bit lower than the circle of my flesh tone to get a slightly darker version of the flesh tone in my body. So if I start to see that this looks a little darker, it shouldn't be super high contrast, but it should be dark enough that you actually can see it. And remember, these shapes are all made up of points. Even though you drew them with the pencil tool, you can always click on them with the white arrow. And now I'm going to take these points and bring them a little closer to the actual outline of my body. So I can always manipulate them after I drew them and move them away if they're starting to cover up my black stroke outline. What I don't want your stroke effects, your shadow effects to do is cover over that black outline of your body shape. You want to make sure that the black outline of your body shape is still intact. So if you add a shadow effect, take the points and pull them in if they're starting to cover over your clothing stroke lines or over your body black stroke outline. So you want to make sure that that's still intact, you guys. So having some kind of shadow effect, it really needs to be set inside of the body shape, right? It shouldn't be sticking out above it. So you can start to see that that's just like one little shadow effect that I created using the pen tool. I have another one here. And if you don't like if you think that's too dark, you can also just double click again and just go a little bit higher up. So you're going from light to dark this way, and you can see what that looks like. So you can keep playing with it. You could use opacity too if you want to make it a little lighter. But I really, for flesh tone shadows, I like to just work within the color picker window and just go either up or down in terms of, do I need it to be a little bit lighter? Do I need it to be a little bit darker in order for it to look like just a contrast, but not a crazy stark contrast. It should be very flattering against the skin tone that you chose. So I just drew a bunch of just random little shapes, and I did it all with the pencil tool, and I just drew random little shapes, and I made sure that I drew the shape first. So just make sure you draw the shape first. So I'll do this one again. Draw the shape first, because that's where I messed up on the first time. Draw the shape first where you think a shadow effect might be. And then I drop on the flesh tone. Then remove the black stroke outline. Then double click on it, and actually note that once you have one shadow effect that you like, and you like the way the color came out, all that you have to do after you get one done is take the eyedropper tool and eyedrop on top of it to get your other shadow effects. So once you get one shadow effect for your flesh tone, definitely keep eyedropping on top of that color to get the other shadow effects that you're about to add into other areas of the body. And then again, you can take the white arrow, click on that new body shape, and just like kind of put it in place if you feel like it needs to be a little closer to the neck. Because just don't get stuck on drawing the perfect shape to start with. Just draw a random shape in the areas you want, and you can always take the white arrow, move the points, play with the curve handles, do whatever you got to do. But just, again, just draw it all with the pencil tool because it'll give you a little bit more flexibility, and just make sure all your shadow effects in your body don't have a stroke color, only have a flesh color, and that flesh color should be the same flesh color throughout. So once you get that worked out through the first shadow effect that you do, and you have a shadow effect color that you like that's very complementary to the skin tone, only just a shade or two darker, then just keep eyedropping back onto it to make sure that all the other shadow effects you have are the same color. If you are planning on doing a skin tone that is more of a darker shade, like an African American, a very dark skinned African American, that is going to be a little trickier if you do start going in a very dark, almost black tone to the skin. So if I were you and you're planning on doing that as a flesh tone, I wouldn't pick the darkest black. I would pick something a little bit more of a chocolate medium type look, slightly more of a medium tone, because what you're going to want to do for that is you're going to want to make sure that you can pick, again, an eye drop on top of the skin tone. You want to have the option of getting a darker shadow effect here than the skin tone. So if you're working with a very dark black skin tone, I wouldn't do that. I would work with something more of a medium brown in that African American skin tone to make sure that you have a darker option to do as your shadow effect there. So that's kind of just the gist of trying to create different shadow effects. Again, the more skin that you have showing, the more shadow effects you're probably going to have to add. If I was wearing pants right now, if she had a pant outfit on, it wouldn't have to do as many. But you can also add shadow effects to your outfit too. So if you know your pants are baggy and you know they might have some wrinkling that's happening at the bottom because they're scrunched up or something, you might want to add a little shadow effect to indicate the scrunchiness that happens. So for here, I added a different shadow effect to my swimsuit to kind of accentuate the waist a little bit. And this is actually done slightly different than the shadow effect that you're going to do on your skin tone. So what I did for this is, let me take it back to the beginning, is I used the pencil tool again, and I drew a random shape with the pencil tool, so same as I did for the flesh tone. The only difference here is your shadow effects on your garments. This is only shadow effects for your garments only. You're going to use the opacity tool because you want to be able to see through the clothing through the shadow effect. Where in the flesh tone, I didn't need to see anything through it. This, I actually want to see the stripe, swimsuit underneath my shadow effect. So for that, I start off with black in my fill box. I pick the darkest black in my fill box, and that I start off with to begin with. I draw my shape, I change it into the darkest black, and then I click on it, the shape with the white arrow, black arrow, doesn't matter, and I go up to here, up to opacity. And if you don't have, and this whole toolbar, if you don't have this, guys, it means that you don't have window application frame, window control, and window toolbars advanced all checked. Remember, those always are the three things we need to have checked when we get started drawing in Illustrator. So if you don't see that up here, this opacity, when you click on the shape, something up here is not checked. It's probably application frame. So make sure that you have that checked. But you have to click on the image first, which for the image for me is this little shape that I drew. Again, it's a joined shape. I drew it with the pencil tool. I need to click on that first or the opacity might not show up. So you need to click on the shape, opacity shows up. You know, it started off as a very solid matte black. Now I can take the opacity and I can click on the little arrow. I can drag the wheel back. And I can't tell you how much opacity what percentage of opacity to use. You're going to have to see for yourself to see the effect that you want. So you want to just make sure the goal is to see your outfit through the shadow effect. So if you have a pattern or a color showing through that outfit, you want to make sure that you can actually see your shadow effect, the pattern or the color of your outfit through it. So you might want to take the shadow effect down to really low percentages so that you can see the shape of the shadow effect, which you can still see the shape of it, but I didn't lose my stripe colors. You can still see them kind of coming through. And the same thing here, I drew another one, and I just drew two here to accentuate the waist. I decided not to do some on my short because there really wasn't anything to kind of really do a shadow effect on the short. My shorts weren't like baggy or scrunched up on the sides, or else I might have added a shadow effect there. If you guys are drawing skirts that have fabric motion in them, you might want to also add not only the fabric motion lines that you do normally in your flat CAD, you might also want to add some additional shadow effects because there is movement happening in anything that's like drapey or flowy. So if you have that kind of illusion in your outfit somehow of a drapey, flowy look, you might want to add some more shadow effects as well as those stroke lines that indicate fabric movement. My shirts are pretty flat, so I didn't get to do that on here, but I just did a little inside the outfit to accentuate the waist. So I'll do a separate tutorial on lacing. I'm also going to do a separate tutorial on hair. But you know, if you're going to add accessories into your, and also accessories, you're going to just draw them as separate body shapes. But that's really just to get you to this, to the starting point of this. This is really the starting point to get from, you know, a live model drawing that you trace over top of, it, you make sure you do all those separate loose pieces that need to accentuate some of the shapes of the body, and then you fill the body CAD of the shape with your flesh tone of choice, And then you start to dress your model and with your outfit, and just make sure that your outfit of your flat CAD outfit is next door to your fashion illustration when you're drawing it. Really important. Make sure it matches with all the top stitching details. Everything should match, even though it's drawn differently, a little bit more stylized on the illustration, it still should match the same details. So make sure you're always constantly comparing the flat CAD to the image on your illustration so you don't miss any important details that should be there. So this is going to be the conclusion of this part 1 of our how to draw a fashion body illustration in Illustrator. There will be a separate part 2 that I encourage you to watch to do hair, accessories, and you know, we'll do that as a separate tutorial.